Within structural realism, there are two schools: offensive realism and defensive realism. They differ in terms of whether a country wants to accumulate as much power as possible, as much power. Offensive realists believe that a country wants to accumulate as much offensive, whereas defensive realists believe that country may want to accumulate something, but not more. This is offensive realism and this is defensive realism. Waltz is a defensive realist. He believes that if a nation accumulates power beyond a point, it invites trouble from other countries. It invites trouble from a coalition. So a country doesn't want to invite that. So it reaches a particular position and stays there. For example, Bismarck's Germany was one such. He did not try to dominate Europe. Whereas offensive realists believe that a country wants to dominate as much as possible and it wants to be a hegemon. Hegemon means only superpower. Okay. One may even want to be a global hegemon. It means there is no end to the power the state wants to accumulate. Okay. This particular position is taken by one American political scientist by name John Mearsheimer. He wrote a book titled The Tragedy of Great Power Politics. The Tragedy of Great Power Politics. John Mearsheimer. Its first edition came in 2001 and recently it is updated in 2014. Okay. So to Mearsheimer, if some power is good, more power is better. Because after all, if one becomes a hegemon, there won't be any state that can even think of threatening it. Okay. Now let us take one case using offensive realism and defensive realism to make predictions about rise of chain. Rise of chain. Rise of chain. Okay. Okay. Let us look at Mearsheimer's explanation on rise of chain. He says China's rise is not going to be peaceful. It is not going to be peaceful. Why is it so? He says China is a aspiring power, and USA is a ruling power. And now sole superpower. There is going to be a conflict between aspiring power and ruling power. This conflict is inevitable. US is a status quo state. It wants to retain its power share in the world. Whereas China is a revisionist state. It wants to revise the current distribution. Mearsheimer here gives certain strategies. How does China want to emerge as a competitor? Here he says, here the details are important. Here he says, okay, here he introduces two concepts. One is regional hegemony. Another is global hegemony. Hegemon means sole superpower. Sole power, okay, sole superpower, sole major power, sole great power is hegemony. If there is only one great power in a region, then it means it has become a regional hegemony. If there is only one great power in the entire globe, that is a global hegemony. So hegemon impacts the relations across countries and doesn't want the threat to it. Mearsheimer says about US that US he became the sole superpower through first becoming regional hegemon. And he says that this is not at global hegemon, not global hegemon. global hegemon is not possible to remain sole great power. Okay. So he says that US became regional hegemon and to avoid being threatened by other powers, it prevented the rise of regional hegemons in various regions. Okay. So his argument is that become a regional hegemon first and prevent others from becoming regional hegemons in their respective regions. Prevent others from becoming regional hegemons. Mearsheimer thinks that US prevented in the past rise of Japan, rise of Germany. Okay. So it prevented emergence of regional hegemons after it itself became regional hegemon in 19th century. 19th century. So he says China will also follow this strategy. China will also follow this strategy. What will China try to do? China will be first regional hegemon. Regional hegemon. It means in Asia. And once it becomes a regional hegemon, then it can offer competition to USA. So China's target is not to directly exceed USA, but rather first become a regional hegemon. Because that's what USA did. What did USA do? USA, under what was called Monroe Doctrine, did not allow other countries in the Western sphere. Okay. This is the Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine was first articulated by President James Monroe in 1823. 1823. The European powers, according to him, were obligated to respect the Western Hemisphere as the US sphere of interest. So he gave this doctrine in 1823, and by 1898, USA became regional hegemon and tackled other countries. So Mearsheimer says that China would like to repeat the success story of US. China would attempt regional hegemony in Asia, that is one, and which also meant get the US out of Asia, regional hegemon in Asia, and get the US out of Asia. It would be Chinese version of Monroe Doctrine. what is this offensive? Why is it coming up under offensive realism? Offensive realism predicts that countries would like to become hegemons and they don't stop after acquiring some power. So, uh, according to this, China will be a regional hegemon, which also means check out US out of this region. Just the way US did in Latin America and North America and Central America. It did not want any regime hostile to it, be it Cuba or many other countries. So it did not tolerate others' influence in the entire Western Hemisphere. Okay, the entire Western Hemisphere. And then it checked out other powers. So Mearsheimer says that this is what China is going to do. Okay. So it means China would like to handle countries of the region, Japan, Russia, Australia, India, all these countries. And then get US out. So surrounding its region, surrounding Chinese region. So Mearsheimer says US is not going to let China do this. And so this will lead to a conflict between US and China. This conflict can take place around any particular issue. It can be South China Sea, it can be Taiwan, it can be any other issue, Korea. Okay. So China would like to be a regional hegemon, and US would want to prevent China from becoming a regional hegemon, and that leads to the conflict. And so Mearsheimer thinks that war between US and China on some issue is very likely. Of course, one can only say about likelihood. Okay. So this is how Mearsheimer thinks about rise of China. So he thinks it is very difficult that China's rise will be peaceful because US is not going to let it. Okay. So how would defensive realists think? Defensive realists think that China will behave like Bismarck Germany, not trying to accumulate as much power. And they have three important reasons. Number one, nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons is a very serious issue because of which wars are not easy. Okay. And then, because of globalization, wealth grows by trade and not conquest. Economic reasons. And also, if China occupies any country, it becomes very difficult to retain it because of nationalism. So, defensive realists say that China will not try to be a hegemon and it will place certain restraints on itself, and so its rise can be peaceful. Okay. And of course, there are some realists who think of various possibilities that China and USA together will be first bipolar, and then some other countries will join in terms of multipolarity, and they think of many other possibilities. Okay. So this is how realists think in terms of rise of China. It means that there is no one theory. There are different proposals, and we don't know which will turn out to be correct. And more importantly, uh, China's rise is assumed to be based on these factors: economic growth, okay, and political stability. And we can't be very sure about the political stability nor about this continuous growth. Okay. So there are certain issues, but these theories assume this growth and stability, and given this, what happens? But there is an inbuilt certain uncertainty about these aspects. Okay. So this is one issue. Thank you.